I'm not smooth. I'm super hairy. So the idea of being a young hairless twink, I never wanted to be that. It was never my erotic attraction. I always wanted knowledge, experience, spiritual growth, intellectual growth, and I always looked to older people as repositories of that.
Want to listen to this episode ad free? Head on over to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/, Ivory Tower Boiler Room. For a limited time, we are offering free 1 week trials to our Patreon just so you can see all of the exciting audio and video episodes that you get to unlock as a Patreon member. And as an ITBR professor member, which is $10 a month, you receive access not only to our audio and video episodes, but also our monthly book club. This month, we are reading The Book of Gothel, a retelling of Rapunzel through the witch's eyes by Mary McMinn. Join us virtually on July 21st at 5 p.m. If you have any questions, please reach out to me at ivorytowerboilerroom@gmail.com. Please rate and subscribe to the podcast on Apple or Spotify. And please mention the podcast to one of your friends. It really helps get the word out there and it allows me to continue getting really exciting guests, Mary to continue her True Crime and Academia show, and Christian Garcia to continue to co host our rewatch show, whether it be Smash or Queer as Folk. And we are now on YouTube, so you can listen to the podcast on YouTube. So if you're a YouTube lover, we have you covered there as well. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hi, this is Dr. Andrew Rimby. And when I'm not here with a podcast microphone, I am consulting. I have offered small businesses social media marketing consulting services. I've had a few college and mission essay clients who I'm happy to announce after working with me, they got into the colleges that they wanted to get into. So, congratulations. I worked on a thesis for a graduate student, and I recently have worked on a published journal article to provide some editing tips. I also have worked on podcast consulting with those who are either looking to tap into new social media marketing strategies for their podcasts, whether it be how to get onto YouTube, how to work on their TikTok, even how to use Instagram and how it differs from TikTok for social media clips. And I also have had a few clients who didn't know whether or not they wanted to start a podcast. So they reached out to me. If you want to book me for consulting services, the first hour is 30 minutes. And then we decide from there what services I can best offer you. So please reach out to me at ivorytowerboilerroom@gmail.com, or you can search for me on Google under Ivory Tower Boiler Room and you'll see my phone number there. I can't wait to work with more of you this summer to fall season. So please spread the word if you know anyone who's looking for editing, podcasting, or social media consulting. Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Andrew Rimby, and welcome back to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room Rewatches Queer as Folk, episode 10. So, episode 10 is called Surprise, and that's it. uh, so, not much context given, but I'm joined with a very exciting guest, someone who I've actually had on my bookshelf for a while, since 2018, without actually getting to meet him. So, this is a pleasure. I am joined with writer, therapist, and pleasure activist who is coming from New York City, Don Shewey. So, Don is a journalist, critic. He's published 3 books about theater, written hundreds of articles for not any shabby publication, the New York Times, the Village Voice, Esquire, Rolling Stone. He has chronicled his psychosexual spiritual adventures and essays that have been included in anthologies, including The Politics of Manhood, Best of the Best Gay Erotica, The Queerest Art, Essays on Gay and Lesbian Theater, and Men Like Us. His book that I am going to be chatting about is called Daddy, Lover, God, A Sacred Intimate Journey. But the one that I actually first had from 2018 is called The Paradox of Porn, Notes on Gay Male Sexual Culture. So I'm so thankful for Don to be here and to recap episode 10. So welcome, Don, to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room.
Thanks for inviting me, Andrew. But you had me watch episode 11 of Queer
I
as
mean,
Folk.
sorry, episode 11. It
All
is
right,
episode 11. I know. I like one time joked with a guest here that there's going to be a time where I did the wrong episode, but no, it is episode
all right.
11.
There we go.
Uh, and episode 11 is called Surprise. Um,
Oh, right.
so yeah. Thank you for joining. Right away, I have to ask you about the age of 30, since Michael is turning 30 years old, Ted is 33, and Brian says to Ted, well, basically, you're dead. Uh, so how do you feel us being an intergenerational queer male dynamic right now? I'm a millennial. I'm assuming you're a baby boomer, but I know what they say about assuming. Um, so are you a baby boomer?
Uh, I guess uh, technically I'm a baby boomer. Yeah,
Okay. But what did you think about this turning 30 basically being the end of your life?
I think that's a hideous, toxic myth that I hate that even TV shows promote that.
Yeah. Do you think it's something that's even more charged in the queer male community?
I just don't. I don't know. Not my community.
Yeah. So, you know, what kind of community are you a part of, or even like Queer as Folk? Was this something that you had watched when it first came out in the 2000s?
Well, I'll say this. I should probably admit that I'm a total snob about TV shows, and I'm super picky about what I watch and what I don't watch. I watched the entire British run of Queer as Folk, which I enjoyed. I thought it was well done. I watched most of the first season of the American version, and I disliked it intensely. So just starting there, I get that, there's something fun about a TV show where everybody's gay, but I just not a fan of the show in general because it, promotes all these toxic stereotypes about gay men. The casting is extremely bland and homogeneous, and we look at it now and it's like, really? That's really that was revelatory. I get that for some people it was revelatory because it was, some version of a mainstream TV show where everybody's gay. And there's something sweet about that. But man, do I have a lot of critique of the show as, you know, as written. So I'm just
Well,
being
I
really
love the
upfront
critique.
about it.
No, you do not have to be a lover of the show. Actually, I sometimes find the most engaging conversations and is when you're a critic of a show. It'll bring out some interesting points. So I'm assuming that me having you watch episode 11 was the first time you returned to this show
Correct.
since its beginning, premiere.
Right. So when I think back to when I was 30, it was a different time. Uh, before social media, before Queer as
Mhm.
Folk. But I always grew up in, I'm not every gay guy, but I always wanted to get older. I always admired older people. I'm an intellectual. I'm a political activist. I was raised as a, baby feminist as much as a gay activist. And for me, all my boyfriends were always older than I. And, for me, I had no attachment to staying young, and well, I'm not smooth. I'm super hairy. So the idea of being a young hairless twink, I never wanted to be that. It was never my erotic
Mhm.
attraction. I always wanted um, knowledge, experience, spiritual growth, intellectual growth, and I always looked to older people as repositories of that. So that, so I never wanted to stay young. I never like there are a lot of people for whom high school was like their finest time. That was not my story at all. I was looking forward to, there. I grew up with the expression "life begins at 40," so looked forward to being 40. Uh, so that's a totally different attitude from the one of, that I will say I find it very disappointing that a TV show like Queer as Folk will just even put out the idea that, oh, after you're 30, the day after you turn 30, you're going to be wearing Depends. Really? What world does that exist in? Come on. That's
Yeah.
so implausible. It's so
Yeah.
bogus.
Yeah. Did you grow up then in the New York area, or like you've been basically a New Yorker ever since you've moved to this city?
Yeah, I mean, I am a New Yorker. I've been a New Yorker since before you were born, I'll bet. But my father was in the military, so I moved all over the place. So I became worldly at an early age.
Yeah. So do you feel like watching this show, um, like being a New Yorker for a while, like knowing the Hell's Kitchen scene or the Greenwich Village scene, like adult porn cinemas, like that whole experience, was that something, the bathhouse culture, like was that something that you were a part of, or you like took issue with certain aspects of what that was promoting in the queer male culture of New York City?
No, I mean, my first apartment in New York was in the West Village. I moved to New York in 1980. So I was there in the thick of the West Village, which was, um, back then, that was the center of gay life in New York. It very quickly in the next several years turned into also kind of the epicenter of the AIDS epidemic. So I lived through all of that. Um, but I really came out in Boston in the late 70s in the midst
Mhm.
of a very politically active community and was where coming out was embraced as a political act. That's where I really got my chops as a gay kid. So, my boyfriend was a lawyer, one of the first openly gay lawyers in Boston, and he kind of showed me the ropes and took me around to, the cruising areas and, gave me very specific instructions and how to go to the baths and what it was like and what to expect and all of that stuff. It was great. That was at a time when that's how you learned about gay life is from your peers and mentors if you were lucky to have mentors or friends or boyfriends who would show you the ropes, again, way before, the internet or social media.
Yeah. Do you think the show, like even with your critiques, do you think though showing this dynamic of men, like this mentorship in a way, is something that was revolutionary or still isn't seen as much on TV or film, is a group of queer men expressing their relationships or doubts, questioning their decisions and trying to support each other?
Well, clearly, the situations that show up in the show are ones we recognize from life. Like in this episode, there's I don't remember the names of the characters. To me, they all kind of look alike. But all the brunettes look alike and all the blondes look alike. But there's the guy who's secretly in love with uh,
Brian
somebody else.
or
Michael's
Michael.
Brian.
Michael,
So,
probably.
that's a thing of like you watch, so that's a thing. Like people have crushes and you have a crush on somebody who's in your social circle, but it's not really reciprocal. And so there's a lot of pining away. That's a situation that, you know, I recognize from life, that people recognize from life. Sure.
Mm. Well, and do you feel that, like, I mean, you've talked about the 70s, like you coming out in the 70s. I'm even thinking as you're talking about Boston, I'm thinking of that gay scholar John Boswell, who I'm pretty sure was, I forget if I think he was at Yale, but he could have been at Harvard. Um, but he like did this whole work on queering Christianity. But there was like so much in the 70s. I mean, Bette Midler was singing in the bathhouses in Manhattan. So there's that whole like going to Times Square. I had on this podcast Thomas Wall, who talked about um, like the porn cinemas and what it was like to go to that one of the 50th Street theaters. So there was the disco, the fantasy, like the Fire Island experience with Andrew Holleran. But then there was the crashing down of, the AIDS epidemic. But also, I feel this episode kind of shows with Emmett, who's really scared that he might have HIV, that like he's in his own head and so scared, but then the partying's going on. So I do kind of think you must like have some, experience or even just thoughts about like those who are actually going through, being HIV positive, but on the other side, there were the partiers, like trying to almost pretend that it didn't exist. Like, how do you weigh in on that?
Yeah, I mean, of course, that aspect of this episode is recognizable of in a day when it took a while to get tested for HIV, and lots of people lived in fear, and it was a real, many people had the experience of, oh, having a wild night and kind of uh, not thinking too much about safer sex or
Mhm.
protected sex or condoms for butt sex, and then freak out the next day and get tested and have to wait. Many people went through that fear and anxiety over and over and over again. Yes, that's recognizable as a thing. Um, yeah, a lot of people went through in that situation, and I don't know how works in the series. He makes the promise. He prays to God that if I'm negative, I'll never have sex with a man again. I doubt that he actually keeps that promise. Um, Yet I know somebody, an Italian guy who promised his mother on her deathbed that he would stop being gay and stop having sex with men. This is, in recent years. So stuff like that goes on. And as far as I know, he like kept his promise. I mean, that's Italian men, they're very devoted to mama. And so if mama asks on her deathbed, don't be a sinner. I mean, this guy took that seriously. So,
Yeah.
it's a thing. It's hard to deny when people tell you their personal histories.
Yeah. Well, you basically foreshadowed, and it does start to go to conversion therapy. So, uh, you see the writing on the wall from reality and your Italian friend. But like, I'm curious what you think about Justin with blonde hair. He's like our youngest character. Um, Are you enamored with him? Do you see him as relatable in terms of the coming out experience? Like, is he rebellious enough, or is he, um, does he have enough of a personality for you, Don?
Justin is the one who gets rimmed in the first episode.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, just, again, I know that, he's conceived in the series as like everybody's ideal of cute young boy. I mean, sorry, but, you know, bless your heart if that's your type. So not my type.
Mm. What is your type, Don? I'm
I've always,
curious about this.
I've always liked hairy guys. I've always liked older guys, receding hairline, a little bit of a belly. Those are all totally fine by me. To me, those are signifiers of masculinity. Hairless, skinny twinks. I don't get what's masculine about that.
So what's it like when I mean, do you still go to like the Eagle, which is a leather bar for everyone out there, just because I know that's specific, but like, do you still go to gay clubs? And if you do, like, what's your relationship to them?
Uh, when I want to step into a bacchanal, I can always go to the Eagle. I think of Saturday night at the Eagle as 500 blowjobs waiting to happen. And I just, visited, the Red Eye is a new club in Midtown, and there's kind of a downstairs area called the Cockpit. I went to a club there to check it out. So yeah, I like making the rounds.
Yeah. Do you think that it's more or less charged now in 2023 in terms of fitting certain molds? Or is that just a misnomer? Like that's just because um a man is insecure with his own authenticity. Like you don't even think that there is a certain beauty image when it comes to the queer male community.
Oh, I think, Andrew, I think it's so hard to generalize.
Mhm.
I'm not great about generalizations because I can always think of exceptions, you know, and I don't mean to harsh anybody's, buzz or yuck anyone's yum,
Yeah,
as we
yeah.
say these days. Um, but it is my impression that, when you're younger, you're more attached to types and and you're more susceptible to, um, cultural stereotypes. I don't know where that balloon just came from. Uh, uh,
Yeah, there was a
uh,
balloon on Don's screen. I loved it though. It's a
uh,
celebratory message. It's the birthday surprise. There you go.
Surprise! That's from Queer as Folk. That's from Russell Davies, or
Yeah.
Jonathan Tollins. Uh, No, I think when you're younger, you're more susceptible to what you're told are the social norms.
Yeah.
And, gay men at a certain point, a, s- a lot of gay men are socialized to think that you have to be young, you have to be pretty, you have to be slim, you have to have a six pack, all these like, this kind of ideal of masculine beauty. And that's what everyone aspires to. And then you wind up, yeah, if you believe all those things, then if the minute you have a wrinkle on your face or you turn 30, then you're trash. That's just such bullshit, that just doesn't make any sense to me at all. And I find it kind of tragic that people buy into that mentality, which I think is a thing of the past. I think nowadays, partly this is one of the benefits of the internet, is that, you see all kinds of gay life. You can't go anywhere, you can't click around anywhere and not discover all kinds of pockets of gay life and people who look all different ways, um, different colors, races, ages, even pornography, which I wrote a book about. So I've spent a fair amount of time enjoying uh, erotic imagery online, and there was a time when skinny hairless twinks were like what were was considered to be the ideal that everybody wanted to jerk off to, but that wasn't for everyone. In the 70s when, gay porn really came out and there were magazines and movies and so forth, there were also, the whole Richard Locke and Joe Gage, you know, uh, men with mustaches, men with longer hair, men with hairy bodies, and that was more appealing to me. And so there's never really been just one limited uh, style that is the only acceptable model of gay beauty or gay attractiveness, even though there are lots of people who did buy that myth. That TV show, The A-List, I found completely horrifying because it was full of these kids who just like bought the myth that club culture is all there is to gay life. Whew. Good luck, kids. If that's what you think, life is, that's kind of sad and it's kind of paltry. There's a much bigger, wider world out there than club culture. Club culture can be fun, but it's not the only thing.
After Pride Month is over, sometimes it can be hard to find our favorite LGBTQ books, TV shows, films, even theater experiences. Well, don't worry because I have the magazine for you. It is called The Gay and Lesbian Review, and their latest July and August issue just got released. It's called Sanctuary. Well, here is what editor Richard Snyder Jr. just described about the latest issue. He writes, the impulse for any minority to seek out safe spaces or sanctuaries exists in proportion to the oppression they suffer in their social world. From the catacombs of Rome to the colony of Plymouth, the upshot of this quest is well attested. Members of sexual minorities have undoubtedly been forming their own private communities for centuries. Would Plato's Symposium be an early example? But it was only in the 19th century that sexual identity became a criterion for forming associations of like minded individuals. Well, this issue has everything: an article about Andy Warhol's factory, an article about how Nantucket became a gay haven, how a lesbian art colony formed in St. Augustine, even how a gay bar in San Antonio fought back and won. for recognition of the LGBTQ community. So, the ITBR is so excited to partner with the Gay and Lesbian Review, who is offering an exclusive discount code. Head on over to glreview.org, click subscribe, and enter the promo code ITBR50. That is ITBR50 to receive 50% off any print or digital subscription. And make sure you follow at the GL Review on Instagram to see all of their latest news. I hope you enjoy your reading. Were you a fan of the TCM Turner Classic Movie Network and you couldn't wait to see what classic movie they were going to premiere? And when you went to Hollywood/MGM studios in Disney World, you would always go to the Great Movie Ride. I absolutely loved the Great Movie Ride, especially when we landed in the Wizard of Oz scene and the Wicked Witch of the West came out from a heap of smoke and confronted Dorothy and Glinda. Well, I have a podcast for you. My good friend Christian Garcia's podcast is called That Old Gay Classic Cinema. So he combines classic cinema analysis with a queer study angle. So some of his recent episodes include Singing in the Rain, Breakfast at Tiffany's, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, Sunset Boulevard with our good friend Janine Cucci, the co-owner of the Soapbox NY. Alfred Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train, The Philadelphia Story, and so much more. You can listen to his podcast wherever you get your podcasts, like Apple or Spotify. And every Friday, I release a new That Old Gay Classic Cinema episode because he is now part of the ITBR network. I am now releasing his episodes on the ITBR podcast. So make sure that you have a listen because I was on his first episode talking all things The Sound of Music, which, if you didn't know, I was Captain Von Trapp when I was in high school. So make sure you follow him on TikTok and Instagram at That Old Gay Classic Cinema and rate, subscribe, do all the things, and please help support my friend Christian's podcast. I know you're going to love it.
And, you know, don't let anybody tell you that's the only thing to aspire to.
Yeah. Well, my boyfriend and I call them scene kids. Like they want to be in the scene, but I go to Fire Island a lot and I now have like made a tradition of staying at the Belvedere and I've learned so much from like embracing my nudity, but like how it's not just a sexual like before I thought, oh, when you're nude, it's something that has to be sexually charged. But then I'm like, wow, like I'm actually having these intellectual, in-depth conversations with intergenerational men. And it's like that space of security or comfort is so welcoming. And it's something that I feel this like if I have any critique about queer as folk, I mean, there's a lot of critiques, but I am kind of always waiting for the different generations to come together and it's like not happening. It's a very like you're having me see what this show's limit is, which is it is really obsessed about beauty, like age, beauty. Um, Justin, I mean, is 17, I think. So like he's our younger person, but it really is not even when they're at the gym and they're nude in the steam room, it's always like to get a blowjob or I don't again, it's a very fantastical pornographic fantasy of what the steam room is. Like it's not like what I've seen, in conversations at the Belvedere. It doesn't necessarily get into that um liberatory way of being comfortable with your body. I mean, Don, you're an expert at your like pleasure activism, and I'm sure you have thoughts about um what nudity, like the liberatory feelings or aspect that that brings. I mean, like me talking about the Belvedere, what does that bring up for you?
Well, I think of the Belvedere. I mean, I love that you've discovered that, it's a whole world. The Belvedere is a hotel, a gay hotel in Cherry Grove. Most people think of Fire Island, think of the Pines, which is the community that is, you know, f younger, buffer, mostly male, all the stereotypes of, kind of club guys and gym bunnies and people who spend all year long um, going to the gym to look good in a speedo, go to Fire Island. Whereas Cherry Grove is older, and there are a lot of lesbians and gay men, and it's a much more relaxed, less competitive environment. And the Belvedere is where people from all over the world come and hang out, and it's a hilarious sort of rococo environment with hilarious old-fashioned uh, um, decor.
Yeah.
But it is a place where well, I think Cherry Grove in general is a community that is more and more mixed in every way. There's like been a huge effort to make Cherry Grove specifically, and also the Pines, more welcoming to Black and Brown queer folks, which has been happening uh, over time.
Yeah. And I went to one of my first teas last summer. Like I never really went to the tea at the Pines, and like it was exciting to see almost like 200 men, but at the same time I could feel like the competitive um I could feel the sizing up or even right, but of course there's always exceptions to the rule. Like you said, generalizations are harmful or misleading because there were like those who were just having a grand old time dancing, did not care in the world. I love that attitude. But then there's definitely the Hell's Kitchen gay, which they don't all live in Hell's Kitchen, but like the stereotype of kind of like the A-list or someone you would like want to cast, maybe Hollywood would cast as who they think frequents the Pines. Um, and again, it's great if that's how you want, like you aspire to do that, but also I'm always curious, what's the personality behind this image? Um, like I'm more excited about the conversations we'll have or getting to know someone instead of fitting the group. Like I'm not a real believer of group think when it comes to behavior. So yeah. But I mean, do you still frequent Fire Island on?
I mean, I've never been a I I haven't spent a huge amount of time on Fire Island. I've been out, you know, a number of times over the years, and I have friends who go out all the time. Um, the thing is that, in Fire Islands, it's very beautiful. It's a fun place to be, and it. I think the thing that I most want to the sort of idea I want to steer toward, Andrew, is this idea. People talk about Fire Island as this kind of dream fantasy thing. Fire Island, P Town as these kind of resort destinations, and they prize a certain kind of muscular male body and gym bodies, and looking good in speedos. But you know what? That's not the only communities based on looks are not the only communities that exist. I think about the communities that have been important to me, and they include, my as a writer, my first writing gig was at Gay Community News. So Gay Community News in Boston was a very important newspaper and journalism outlet. Uh, one of the first in the country. Political activism was always very important to me. In Boston, my lover John Ward and I, took part uh, in those days. It was a gay march. It was a political liberation march. Later became commercialized into Pride, which now is, happens in airports and an opportunity to sell rainbow flags and so forth. Well, other communities that have been important to me are, ACT UP was very important to me. Gay Men's Health Crisis was an important community to me. I've been very involved with the Body Electric School, which is a whole other erotic community that promotes finding a place for sexuality and spirituality to coexist. I'm a writer, so a lot of my friends are writers. I'm a therapist. A lot of my friends are therapists. So there are many, many, many communities that coexist. I'm a theater guy. I'm a theater critic and a theater lover. And theater, is a world where there are a lot of gay people and there are a lot of gay theater goers. There are many, 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 many communities that coexist that aren't just about, looking good in a Speedo. I mean, that's
Yeah.
obvious to say, but that's worth saying.
Yeah. Well, and growing up as a child, I would go to New Hope all the time since my dad's from Bucks County and my aunt is still there. And I can't wait. I'm gonna go back again. And it's always exciting to be there. And I always like saw the LGBT um art community and like the theater community is really strong there. But Fire Island has that too, like you're saying. I mean, I just always say go in with your own authenticity and you'll find that community, like no matter where you're traveling. But I do have to ask you, like, what your thoughts are when there's a lot of conversations in this episode about um how couples are having sex, or especially Melanie and Lindsay, our lesbian couple, um, are having like sexual problems, or they're not having sex, and you can kind of tell that there's going to be a rupture in the relationship because Melanie really wants intimacy and Lindsay, there's some barrier that's happening because maybe, just having a child and working through that. So, what were your feelings about how sex is represented in this episode?
That's a good question. So, one of the things I like about Queer as Folk, both the English and the American version, is that it's pretty frank about sex, and uh, uh, sort of shows how sex is an important part of gay life, and it's not, so you see people hooking up in bathrooms and, easily falling into sex, and that's a pretty accurate there. That's accurate to an extent of that's how gay people roll. It's quite different. Gay folks generally have a different ethos around uh, uh, sex in and out of relationships than heterosexual people do. At the same time, the show is very soap operatic, and I think the writing is pretty crummy and crude, and yes, it's a real issue in lots of relationships, ongoing relationships, when there's a disparity of erotic desire, and there are ways to portray it. This episode portrays the two women in a very cartoonish way, in a very kind of crude way. Um, but those are, I'm one of the things, I'm a therapist who specializes in uh, sexual issues, and so I spend years, months, talking with uh, couples and clients about what are the issues, what are the desires, what are the dreams, what gets in the way, what do you do when there's a disparity of sexual desire in an ongoing relationship. It's not a joke. It's a serious thing. There's a lot to that can't really be uh, summed up or wrapped up in a bow in a 30-minute episode.
Yeah. Did you feel that like nudity or the sexual situations, um are they trying to shock the viewer, you feel, or are they done in a genuine way? Like, is it trying to shock you because it was a premium channel with Showtime, or it comes up genuinely, like finding out that like Ted was having sex in the car, and there's like that whole scene where the car is like going back and forth. Um, like you said, there are the soap opera moments. So do you feel sex is done authentically as possible, or kind of just starts to fall into these soap opera traps?
Well, it's all a cartoon. Like, even the
Hmm.
depiction of the character. You know, I don't know if we use, can you say fuck, getting
Oh
fucked
yeah,
on
yeah,
the,
yeah. You could say anything. Yeah.
always never sure on podcasts. It's kind of funny. It's kind of surreal. I like that in the British version. There were many more surreal moments like that where it was kind of taken to a heightened level, whereas the American version is kind of uneasy mixture of kind of corny soap opera and these little moments. And you know, maybe for some people who are kind of who live in rural Iowa, scenes of guys, no, I was going to say having casual sex. No, it's not surprising to anybody. Everybody has casual sex. People, in time immemorial, my father, I'm sure, had sex in trucks, when he was growing up, not with uh, men, but with girls. Um, so yeah, I can't speak to whether they thought it was shocking. Probably everything about the show, thought it was shocking. And just starting with, um, the first episode of somebody getting rimmed, that had never been seen on, cable TV. But now, there's White Lotus where the same,
Yeah.
uh, image shows up. I don't know. Have you seen this movie, Rotting in the Sun? Have you heard about this movie, Rotting in the Sun?
No, what is that, Don?
It's a latest film by this very interesting Chilean filmmaker named Sebastian Silva, and he's made a bunch of very edgy films. And his most recent one is called Rotting in the Sun, where he plays the main character, he plays himself basically a filmmaker who's trying to come up with his next movie and is kind of depressed. And his friends say, "Oh, you should go to." They have some other name, but they send him to Zipolite, which is, do you know about Zipolite? It's
Mm-mm.
a town in Mexico on the west coast in the state of Oaxaca that has a famous gay nude beach, or nude beach. Like the whole town has a legal nude beach, and everybody's like naked on the beach. But then there's a little area they call it Playa del Amor, the beach of love, where at sundown every night becomes a big orgy on the beach. And in the movie, they show that. They show, the main character going to the beach, and, hilarious. It's a to me it's a realistic portrait of like going to a beach like that, and being surprised at all the dicks just hanging out, and then guys going behind the rocks and having orgies on the beach. And there it's depicted very openly and very explicitly, which I like. Queer as folk is still a little kind of tame about it, little just tiny like shadowy uh glimpses of guys in the steam room or guys at the party.
Mhm.
I don't know if they're in the bathroom or bedroom, fooling around with the party guy, whatever the action
The
figure
soup.
is,
Oh yeah, the
yeah,
comic book hero who's almost a
whatever.
stripper. I don't know what
Right.
was going on, but yeah. Who then I guess is servicing the other guys? I don't know.
He seemed to be just allowing himself to be worshipped, by anybody who wanted to have a go at him.
Yeah.
I wanted more
Well,
of that. I wanted the full
so you
screen.
wanted more of okay. So you wanted more
I'm a perv.
perspective of that.
I want more,
More angles.
more explicit.
Yeah, yeah. So I was curious because, like, you wrote The Paradox of Porn. You've talked about like the liberating aspect, the oppressive aspect of porn. Like, what did you think of even when they were in a sex shop? Like, there's that moment where Melanie like looks at a strap on, and it's kind of like they're in a shop, but they're also mocking it. Like, oh, should we buy this toy? Oh no, that's like ridiculous. Who would need this dildo? Like I didn't know what to make of that scene.
It felt like a cliche to me. It's so easy to make fun of dildos and sex shops and so on. Ha ha ha, dildo.
Yeah.
How about a new way of looking at it? How about actually, like the people, my experience of shops like that, good ones like Good Vibrations or, Toys and Babeland, like the people who work there are really smart, and they're like, the baristas or the budistas at cannabis dispensaries, they know their stuff. And if it would be more interesting to have like a really like um a real conversation about lube, like that would be actually educational for the public. Say, oh, when you go to those shops, you can actually talk to the salespeople who are quite knowledgeable about their product, and what's the difference between this lube and that lube. I've been in those conversations, I've had them, and I've overheard them. They're fascinating, and they're more interesting than saying ha 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 vibrating dildo. Tell us
Yeah.
something
It,
new.
it felt very bachelorette. Um, like they could have started to just buy like, you know, pin the balls on the cock or whatever, games happen.
And we all have that. I mean, that's the first response when you go into a sex shop like that is you laugh at things because there always are, hilarious um, products, merchandise that somebody has thought of. I mean, one of my favorite comic things in life is there's a company called Udatz. Do you know about Udatz?
No,
UDATZ. It's
no, what is this?
an online sex toy store, and they come up with the most crazy merchandise. And so just getting their emails is like they're hilarious. They make you laugh because they're so extreme. The devices that people have come up with, the like devices that are like this long and like who's going to use that? I did buy one as a joke present for my husband, and just he stuck it on the wall of his shower just because what else are you going to do with it? But it's literally like this long. Um, you know, so there is something to be said to make
Mhm.
fun of those things, and they're also kind of great. Like if you've never used a vibrator on your butt, especially externally, I encourage you to try it. It's one of the secret pleasures of life for men. I mean, there's lots of pleasure for men besides around butts, besides penetration and fucking. The external anal area is really full of sensitive
Mm.
nerve endings, and a vibrator just going up and down your butt crack, even over underpants, can be quite thrilling. I encourage you and your listeners to try
Yeah.
that out.
Well, and what I love is in Daddy Lover God, you even like, if you can just explain a little, like you go through these different stages of boners, not stages, but like the different numbers of boners, like at the beginning. So how does that like kind of leap into your discussion around sacred intimacy?
Well, so let me just say a little bit what the book is. This book
Hmm.
that I wrote, Daddy Lover God, A Sacred Intimate Journey, is a memoir about my experience as doing sacred intimate work, sexual healing work. A lot centers on my training and experience with the Body Electric School, which started out as a brick and mortar massage school in Oakland, California, but now it's more virtual. But they teach workshops all around the country in erotic massage as a healing practice. So Joseph Kramer, who started the Body Electric School, devised this notion of sacred intimate training, teaching people to be skillful at sexual healing work. And I took that training 3 of the first 4 years it was offered, and was one of the perhaps foolish people who really took it as vocational training, hung out a shingle and started doing some version of sacred intimate work, though I never use those terms because most people don't know what sacred intimacy means. My book will educate some people, and others are spreading the term. But basically, my perspective on sacred intimacy, it's basically erotic massage plus X equals sacred intimate session, and the X is different for each person. So, uh, if you want to just get an erotic massage, a sensual massage with or without a happy ending, there are lots of places you can go for that. And fantastic, that's really fun. It's kind of great to go into a massage situation where you don't have to worry about, oh, if I get an erection, will it embarrass me? Will it embarrass the massage therapist? Will they kick me out? Will they dump me off the table? Will they ban me? There are places for which that's true. I think a lot of people, a lot of men, a lot of gay men like getting a massage where like all of you is acknowledged. So that's the style of massage that the Body Electric School teaches, is about raising and circulating erotic energy around your whole body. So it's a full body experience, not just a genital experience, let's say. And it involves breathing, and you can squirt if you want, but it's not necessarily like ejaculation is the be all and end all. Anyway, that's just a little bit of a nutshell about the journey that I went on, and that my book Daddy Lover God takes you through. But you're referring to a chapter where I describe, um, again, when you're working as a massage therapist, you get to um, witness a vast variety of bodies, body types, body functions, different how you know um, how different dicks can look, and how different balls can look, and foreskins or not foreskins, and how uh, nipples that are erotic and nipples that aren't erotic, butts that are erotic and butts that aren't erotic, and all the different specialties that people have. So, when you're a massage therapist, and, a lot of people who are practitioners are reading my book and, letting me know that, like people say, I had that client. uh, I describe a lot of situations that people who have ever done some version of erotic body work recognize just how you deal with clients and the kind of funny things that happen and the sweet things that happen and the poignant things that happen. And as a practitioner, you keep track of, how the ups and downs that dicks go through in an erotic massage session. For a lot of guys, this is an important training because, porn, for all the things that are wonderful about porn, kind of plants the seed that you can get hard on command, and you get hard, stay hard for hours and fuck for hours and come on demand and, shoot across the room. Well, that's not actually how most people's bodies work. And so, it's a little bit of a, uh, there's an opportunity to kind of learn that everybody functions in a slightly different way, and you get to figure out how your body functions and let that be okay. And the truth is, in sexual situations, most guys erections come and go. It's not like most people, over the age of 17, your erection is not necessarily 100% reliable. As you get older, that really becomes an issue. I mean, issue. It's a situation. So you just learn to factor that in and know that it's not, I've definitely, as a sex therapist, guys have come to me who have like distraught and think that it's tragic and their life is over because they had a date and they lost their erection. That's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean your dick is broken. It's just that, that's an experience that everybody has. But the first time it happens, it can be really upsetting and frightening. And, it's practitioners like me exist to help people understand what the range of experience is in sexual practice.
Well, I have to ask you then, Don. So what do you think of um just the abundance of erectile dysfunction medicine like Viagra, or even now I'm being advertised in like my early 30s, so many of us are getting these ads on social media about hymns, which is like, right, they're like, you're now going to be good for, the second round. I mean, so, do you see pros and cons with this kind of medication?
Well, the erectile dysfunction meds are uh, useful because guess what? They work. And those companies are capitalist operations. Uh, uh, they want you to buy their product. Hims is just the same as Viagra. You can get it prescribed by your doctor, or you can buy it online from, the Hims company. Um, Listen, if it one of the things that's great about the ED meds is they mostly give guys confidence. That if you take a pill and you get turned on, you're probably going to be able to have a good time. It's the tricky part is, those ED meds don't create arousal, they enhance arousal. So they don't automatically create a boner. There's now a whole thing with injectable meds that older guys are very happy to discover that you can inject trimix or quad mix into your dick if you can get over your squeamishness about sticking a needle in your dick, and voila, you have a nice healthy boner for a certain amount of time. um, there's something to be said for those things, and also recognize that um, erectile dysfunction happens to everyone. They say, 40% of men who are 40 experience erectile dysfunction, 50% of men who are 50, 60% of men who are 60. You see where I'm going with that. It's
Hmm.
a normal part of life. And, there's lots of mythologies about, you know, masculinity, and you're supposed to be able to get it up on command. And, a lot of those mythologies are oppressive. You don't have to have a boner at all times in order to have a good time.
Well, so do you feel like the porn industry, speaking for gay porn, do you think that it has like from the 70s, the golden age of porn, um, to now, do you feel that there's healthier discussions around um representation of sex in pornographic categories, or do you think that not much has really changed when it comes to, thinking that men are always ready and they're always hard and showing a lot of like penetrative sex, just like Queer as Folk? I mean, I feel like if there's anything pornographic, like it's not necessarily the nudity, but it's always about, the top or the bottom. Like they're kind of just always interested in penetrative sex
Right.
as markers of eroticism.
Right. Well, porn has changed a huge amount over, my lifetime for sure, just in terms of the technology. Once upon a time, it was a very commercialized thing that only existed as, films and videos. Now, that's not really what most people watch. Most people watch clips or they take videos of themselves and, home videos and handheld videos and, selfies. People look at erotic imagery in a lot of ways. Um, the things that and hooray if that's fun, if it turns you on, great. The things that trouble me a little bit are that cameras are ubiquitous. The assumption that you're having sex not just with your partner but with your phone. Maybe you could put it down. um, Representation has changed a lot, so you see lots more different types in erotic imagery wherever you want to find it. At the same time, there are certain things that don't get certain pleasures that don't get depicted because they're not especially photogenic. The reality is that like taking your time and like the depiction of blowjobs in porn is mostly crappy. And when people try to reproduce what they see in porn as a blowjob, no one's happy. It doesn't feel good. It's way too fast, and it may look exciting, but it doesn't feel exciting. So slow everything down about 1/10 the speed. The other thing that's kind of, I mean, people your age and younger, Andrew, who've grown up on online, porn, have been exposed to extreme porn from a very early age. One of the saddest things that a client ever said to me, who was like in his mid 20s, maybe 25 or 26, said, "I watched 20 gangbangs online before I ever kissed a boy."
Wow.
How about that? The thing about the ubiquity of porn and how available it is that it can implant this idea that extreme sex is like normal. And so guys think, I don't know if I'm available to get fisted, so I guess I can't even go out on a date because he's going to want me to do, everybody thinks if you go out on a date, you have to be available for A to Z. And if I can't do everything, I'm if I do anything, I have to do everything, and I'm not available for everything, so I guess I better do nothing. That's an
Wow.
attitude that I think porn has implanted in people's heads that's a little hard to dislodge.
Yeah. Well, I was actually just talking to my boyfriend about how beautiful it is just to cuddle or like, you know, feel his arms around me. And, like that's something where I'm missing that from Queer as Folk. Like I'm missing the, embracing or just, the erotic touch. It is very the car has to bang, bang, like move, move, move to show the sexual climax. And again, I'm just curious, is that because they thought the audience would be satisfied with this portrayal? Or did they, like you said, did they think that some people who didn't have access to porn would see this as pornographic? It's
It's
hard to
mostly,
figure out.
it's a TV show, Andrew, right? So
Hmm.
all TV shows, all TV series operate on these like little, devices and assumptions and the way of shooting things and the rhythm that, jokes have to happen, everything has to happen at a certain pace. That, that's just TV shows for you. If it would be incredibly experimental and incredibly daring to have an episode where two guys were just in bed for half an hour and did nothing but cuddle and chat. That would be, people would find it well, many people say, "Oh, that's not TV, that's too boring." Other people would be riveted. Just the same way, for so many people who never saw gay social life being depicted have been riveted by every moment of Queer as Folk because they never saw a room full of gay guys having a birthday party. I mean, for some people, that is a revelation, and bless their hearts. That's what a show like Queer as Folk is for. But go look at Looking, which is another,
Mhm.
TV show that has a whole other, to my mind, more authentic depiction of gay social life and, a community of gay men and how they go about their dating and professional lives and sex lives and spiritual lives. There are lots of different ways to depict gay sex and romance.
Yeah, I might have to do Looking in the future because I thought that show was wonderfully
Okay,
done.
you did watch it?
Hmm. Yeah. But like that's why with Queer as Folk, it's actually very exciting when like Brian is vulnerable or there's like Justin and Brian eventually will have more moments where they're cuddling and talking, but it all, it all has to happen after the fireworks. Like they're kind of building us up to this point where the men have to lose a lot in their lives in order to see the beauty of the simple. Not, and I don't want to say simple because it's not like from your work, it's not simple, but the beauty of just, embracing and like that can be enough for that night. Like it does not have to be the whole menu. Um, but yeah, so like I know we're getting near the end, which this has just flown by, Don. Um, the only like other thing from the episode I really needed to hear your advice about was, well, I mean, there's more if you want to talk about it, but because we talked about so much. But what did you think about the whole Brian deciding to, as Deb, Michael's mom said, like throw Michael off the cliff by literally bringing his employee, I mean, he's the supervisor to her, but having Tracy come to this birthday party and find out that he's gay by like meeting his ex-boyfriend and just like creating this
I mean,
fireworks
I thought that
moment.
whole subplot was.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that, women get crushes on, gay colleagues and so forth, but I just thought that whole plot line was bogus. Like, come on, that girl knows he's gay. She's got to be out of her mind. She can't be that shocked. That's ridiculous. I thought that was just dumb.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you think though that Tracy aside, the employee, which I agree with you. I mean, uh she's doe-eyed and I'm thinking if this if she really believes that he's straight, like she knows enough about the gay community. If this is their neighborhood and she's like been around the gay community. Um, but what did you think of the mother saying like thank you for freeing my son, like for letting him now be with David and like that Michael's now going to go back to David and they're supposedly going to live happily ever after. Like did you really see Brian as the villain the way the mother was depicting him? While it's still summer, and I hope so many of you out there are enjoying beach days, I know that while I'm at the beach, I'll have a thought pop into my mind like, wait, what am I going to assign on my syllabus? What books do I want my students to read? I know if you are a college educator listening right now, or a student, or someone who just really enjoys and values academic writing and academic topics, I have a press that you need to know about. It's called Broadview Press, and it's an independent press. I've had a few of their writers on the podcast, including Dr. Sid Dobrin, who was recently on the podcast to talk about how artificial intelligence is changing the game for humanities education. Soon, I'm going to have Dr. Andrea Sullivan Clark on to talk all about philosophies on Turtle Island, especially indigenous philosophies. And what does she think about how pop culture looks at Native American narratives? If you are looking for a text to assign your students in the humanities classroom, Broadview Press has you covered. They have a book that just came out called Academic Writing Now, a brief guide for busy students. It is designed to cover the basics of a college writing course in a concise, student-friendly format. Each chapter concentrates on a crucial element of composing an academic essay. It is available as an ebook for under $30, and it includes readings on contemporary issues like AI, climate change, and campus life. I'm so excited because Broadview Press has released an exclusive discount code, Ivory Tower, for 20% off your broadviewpress.com order. That's Ivory Tower for 20% off. Make sure you follow them on Instagram at Broadview Press. Enjoy all of your reading. It's officially beach season, which means I need all of my favorite Bath and Body products, but this time I need beachy scents. Well, my favorite Bath and Body boutique, the Soapbox NY, has me covered. From Farmhouse Fresh, my favorite company for all things face masks and retinol creams, to Finchberry, a beautiful bar of soap that looks like a slice of cake. I especially love the emerald one because it reminds me of the Wizard of Oz. I also love Wavertree in London. They have summer cocktail scents like peach Bellini, Prosecco, and so much more. They also have a blending bar with over 200 essential oils. So Janine, the co-owner, she knows my favorite scent is French vanilla and almond. So I've had the body wash, the bubble bath, the body lotion. If you don't live on Long Island, which I don't live on Long Island anymore, I still am getting my favorite products because the Soapbox NY has an extensive website as well as an Instagram and TikTok where you can place your orders by just DMing Janine. So if you do live on Long Island, definitely make a day trip out to Port Jefferson. It's a beautiful beach town. So you can follow the Soapbox NY on Instagram and TikTok. That's at the Soapbox NY. And you'll see all ways to contact them. I hope that you enjoy all of their products as much as I do. I mean, I now have gotten all my family and friends addicted to the Soapbox NY. So if I can get more of you out there addicted to their Bath and Body boutique, the better.
Oh, Andrew, it's a soap opera. These are all soap opera points, and everything is about, dramatic shifts, and everything gets heightened, and the thing about soap operas, they hook you, and they slowly wear you down, so that very melodramatic plot points come to seem like kitchen sink realism, when they're just soap opera plot points. You
Yeah.
know, you got to have a dramatic shift every 5 minutes, whether it makes any
Yeah.
sense about the characters or not.
Very true. Well, and like because you brought up the A-list, I feel that when they've tried to do reality TV shows that center on queer men, they try to have just like any reality, they try to do more of the Real Housewives um dynamic of a soap opera meets the queer men. And I keep saying we should have a queer male reality show where we actually find out about their passions and their entrepreneurial spirit, their work. Like instead of like always just forcing them into party situations. But
I
then it
mean, we
wouldn't
all
fit
know
the queer as folk narrative.
we all know there's nothing real about reality TV.
No.
It's just as scripted and edited as the most outlandish, or sci-fi movie set in, on Mars in 2070. It's all completely make believe without much authenticity. Though I will say that the kind of shows like that I've enjoyed, like what's that one called? We Are Here, about the like drag queens that go around to small towns and coach
Mhm.
people to to do drag, and that I find that really poignant, the juxtaposition of where Bob the drag queen will go around and round up the misfit queer kids in town and give them some love and support them in uh, being real, being authentic, being uh, finding acceptance. That has a nice, a sweet impact on the world. Um, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Any
That was
uplifting thing, any uplifting message about the A-list, just because I actually have like it's an acquaintance, but Jess Rothschild and like those who are actually behind that show, I've like we've reached out to each other. So like I have kind of a relationship. Well, one of them was actually not no surprise, is a producer behind the Real Housewives. So it did
yeah,
come from that world.
yeah. It's a
Um,
heightened.
yeah, anything you liked about the A-list, Don? Not like you have to redeem yourself, though.
I can't be any kind of expert because I think I only watched one episode, and as they say in the musical "Merrily We Roll Along," now I understand what the A stands for.
Yeah, and it's not a positive. So I do love that Merrily We Roll Along reference. I'm a huge Soundtime fan. Um, but okay, so the A-list is not for you. That's okay. Not every flavor is meant for everyone. But I am curious, not because this has to be the Real Housewives centered, but they did make a huge deal on the Beverly Hills Housewives. Denise Richards, I don't know if you know that actress, but
I know nothing about Real
okay.
Housewives at all. I've
Okay.
never watched it, never cared to watch it, so I have nothing to say about Real Housewives.
Okay. Well, the only thing that I would
Tell
be
me.
curious about is um they kept making the punchline about her husband having a happy ending massage into this very shocking negative depiction of sex, and like he felt so like they pigeonholed him to make him feel so embarrassed. And Denise Richards kept saying like no, like this was just something that we enjoy as a couple and there was nothing nefarious about it, but like they kept trying to um villainize this depiction of eroticism. So I'm just curious, like have you faced that even when you talk about the work you do, or like the shock of people hearing about even just erotic massage? Like do you think there's just a lot of misconceptions out there?
Well, that's why I write very specifically and explicitly in my book Daddy Lover God about all the various things. It is an opportunity for anyone who's curious to sort of be inside the mind of someone who does erotic massage for a living and see what goes on. But I want to, since we're talking about a TV show,
Yeah.
I want to mention a moment that I thought was one of the best, most sophisticated moments talking about this very thing about sex and sex outside of marriage on The White Lotus season 2. Did you see that? So
Yes,
there's
I
a
did.
moment
Mhm.
when the one wife is just insane because she found a condom on a condom wrapper on the sofa, and her husband denied that anything happened, and the other wife says to her, maybe something happened. I'm pretty sure it wasn't important. And I thought that was the best
Mm.
attitude that someone could convey to, like, come on, people, we're adults. If your husband likes to, go to stripper bars, it's probably he's not going to leave you for a stripper. If he looks at another woman, if you look at another man, it doesn't mean it's all over. It means you're a living, breathing human being. So cut yourself some slack. It's probably not that important.
Yeah.
I love that
Yeah.
that was shown. That was a really nuanced and I thought beautifully written and acted moment of the clash between one very fearful idea about sex outside of marriage and one just more sophisticated and accepting of, you can't expect yourself to fulfill all of your partner's sexual desires for your entire life. That's just not realistic.
Mhm. Well, this is why, people need to learn more about sacred intimacy, the self-knowledge that you discussed about erotic pleasure, like what pleasure activism is. I find everything that you say about sexual healing and like working through trauma through this through erotic massage or even like this journey that you've gone on. I mean, I feel speaks to so many who've had traumatic events surrounding sex or even just negative messages like the one I talked about from the housewives, that could like even be used for fuel as drama. So this is why everyone should get Daddy Lover God by Don Shewey. um and also, if they want to like reach out to you, Don, like what's the easiest way, if people are listening and they're curious about your work as a therapist or contacting you, how can they do all of that?
I'm easy to find online. DonShuey.com is my website that is a writing archive, and you know, I'm Google me and I'm easily found online.
Great. And I have Don's Instagram in the show notes, so you can, make sure you follow him on Instagram. Don, this is very, very, I feel like we hit so many different topics and
But
all
I,
because of Surprise, our
and
episode.
I like that, you and I have very different cultural references and different backgrounds and, different cultures. And I like that. It's fun to, rather than just like have the same references and just be an echo chamber. It's kind of fun to bounce off each other's ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. My last question is, do you miss the 1970s, culture and like, do you miss that we don't have the cinemas and like certain clubs and things or the bathhouses? Or do you feel that we've just moved into an age where like the media has just opened our eyes to so many other experiences?
Yeah, I'm not that nostalgic. There's, gay guys are very inventive around our intellectual lives, our spiritual lives, our sexual lives, our social lives. So we're always coming up with cool new stuff.
Yeah. I would be curious though if they like on Fire Island, this is like an idea for I'm sure that they've done this. I mean, they do this at the Eagle, but or Red Eye, I'm sure Daniel Nardicchio will do it. Um that like if they try to recreate one of the 1970s, what was that boys was it Boys in the Sand? Was that like really infamous movie in the 70s? Um
Boys in the Band was a play, and then
where
there
there's
was a
Boys in the
film called Boys in the Sand that was a kind of a takeoff on that.
Yeah, but like if they try to like premiere Boys in the Sand in a venue, like I'm kind of curious how that would go down, like to recreate the cinema experience. Um, I
I
don't know.
mean, people do it all the time. There's a guy named Adam Barron who is a party promoter and who
Mhm.
also uh, organizes a film series called Queer Art Film at
Oh,
Anthology of Film Archives once a month in New York, and he's great at putting all those things together.
okay. I'll have to look it up. Okay.
Yeah.
You've opened my eyes, Don. But yeah, and Red Eye is a really like Daniel, and I think I met his co-partner Sam. I'm pretty sure. I hope that's his name. But Sam I met at a book event recently and was very sweet. So yeah, a cool place to check out in New York. I'm not being sponsored by them, just to be clear. So thank you, Don.
Free
Again,
advertising.
every wait, what, Don?
Free advertising.
Yeah, free advertising. Why not? Yeah, we're spreading the word, but make sure you get your hands on The Paradox of Porn by Don and Daddy Lover God. So until next time, let's see what episode 12. You don't have to worry about episode 12, Don, but my next guest, we'll see where that leads us. So thank you, Don. Yeah,
Thanks for inviting me into this conversation, Andrew. I really appreciate this time.
of course. And thanks just for your openness and, sharing all your knowledge here. Okay, well, bye to everyone out there and bye to Don.